Welcome back, friends. Long time no see. Look, we got Carrie back. I'm so freaking excited. We get Forrest back and Carrie in the same damn day. It's a good day around here. You guys are great. Um, they have not went live with Lori's proceedings for the day, but I did stalk Joe's Twitter, and I have an update. Now they're running. We know that last time they had a trial for Lori for Charles, they was a half hour delay. I'm not so sure how they're doing it this time. I'm assuming it's the same way. But Joe says now they're 2 hours behind me, and I am on Central Time, 12:34, 12:35. So they went into the courtroom at 10:10 Joe's time, so not long ago, really. Um, Almost 30 minutes ago. Anyway, Lori is seated, apparently not in a wheelchair, but Joe's vision is blocked, so he couldn't really tell. And he says Lori was assessed Tuesday and treated for one issue, but no clinical reasons found that would prevent her from attending court, and Lori disagrees. Of course, Lori is going to disagree. But the judge has spoken. Get your tail into the courtroom, ma'am. We need you there. Welcome back, Joy. Thank you for coming in, guys. I appreciate it. Um, I don't know how long it'll take them to get the feed up, but we do have a few things we could look at in the meantime, uh, preparation wise, as far as Brandon's trial goes. And for those, a lot of you, I feel like you do know the backstory, but just in case, for those who don't, this is what Lori's been convicted 4 times already, and this is her 5th trial. This is conspiracy to commit the murder of Brandon Boudreaux, and Brandon at the time was married to her niece Melanie, and Melanie was all up in the middle of what Lori and her cohorts were doing, and they were trying to take Brandon out as well. They had done labeled Brandon dark. Those of you who watched Charles' trial with us, you are aware of all the things that Charles knew. He was sharing all of that with Brandon, who then, after Charles was murdered, he ended up hiring a private investigator and told him all of the information. Kay shared information with him as well, and he was able to provide he provided a lot of information to the police, right? Which was a really good thing. And Nate Eaton did a good interview with him, and I have that interview. It was really a good piece. I had not heard from him before in this case, so it was really cool to hear what he had to say. Hello, Carol. Welcome in. Good to see you. Always. Thank you guys for coming in. I'm going to check the feed to see if it is up yet. Court TV was carrying it, as well as East Idaho News. Let's see. I think East Idaho News was showing a little bit of Nate's interview that I was just speaking about on their feed. Yeah, they're still waiting on the court to start. So let me pull that up on the side so I can keep an eye on that, and we'll also take a look at some of this other stuff that I had saved for us ahead of Lori's last trial. Is Kay there, Firefly? I haven't noticed from her Twitter account. I did see her post some stuff, but I know she did say she did plan to attend a couple of days at least to support Brandon. I know that. I know a few had decided not to go in person because it's just been a long road. They're supporting Brandon, but as far as being in the courtroom, they're not so sure. Okay, let me get all my stuff situated here, guys, so I can keep up with what's going on, and then we'll. I always love to find out what evidence they may have to offer at trial, especially when we get that far. And so, yes, exactly. Let's hope so. So Joy, she needs to take her butt to the corner and sit there in her cell and eat that slop she complained about on Dateline. We get it. You get horrible food. It is what it is, girl. You got 3 hots at a cot. Stop complaining. Right? You read Nate's latest thread. I'm not good at reading the whole threads. That's why I got you, Butterfly. So Nate's reporting that Kay is there today. Good for her, because Miss Sickly Lori can sit there and look at Kay for a hot minute because Kay's not going to play your game, Lori. Is she? We know that for a fact. Okay. Brandon absolutely deserves this justice, and for like that final book to be closed, and like that investigator was talking with Nate, and Nate asked him, why that burning question we all want to know, how come Melanie was never charged? And he said what I have said, which I think logically we all know there's not enough evidence to charge Melanie. If there's no communications in a text, which there darn, I'm assuming all her communications went via phone call, right? And there's no text linking her. That's all we can conclude because there has to be something to show it, right? It's so aggravating that they can't get to charges with those two because we all know they absolutely, and I say those two, I meant the Melanies, the two Melanies, they both deserved charges, and we all know that. It's just that why didn't they? So we can only assume they didn't have enough evidence to get there with them. Kay is one of the strongest people I've ever seen, right? And through criminal cases and proceedings with families, as far as that goes. Um, there's a few families I know that are just as strong. They're few and far between. Elizabeth Smart's dad will always come to mind first because that was the first biggest high profile case without social media's involvement that just went off the rails. That dude absolutely stood up and fought his ground and fought for his daughter. Jurors are being walked in. Everyone rises except for Lori. She remains seated. Oh, bless her heart. Colby posted, let me see if I can find it and show you guys, because if anybody's going to laugh at Lori and Colby's going to do it, then I got his back. I'll do it with him. Let's see. I just happened to see it a few minutes ago, and I was like, dude, really? Okay, Colby. Hey, it's his mama. He's got the right to say and do whatever the hell he wants. All right, I'll show this to you guys. Maybe it'll get a giggle. This is how. So Colby wants to know, how much do you want to bet she shows up to court like this? Y'all see that? In a whole ass body armor cast suit thing going on. I don't know if Kay's on the witness list. That's good theory there, Carrie. She actually could very well be, because Brandon, she knew a lot that Brandon was doing, and she knew of the private investigator situation and all of that, right? Oh, she's talking with her co-counsel right now, and she's sobbing and raising her voice. Aw. She's going to assert herself, guys. She's going to wear herself out. Lori, calm down. Calm down, Miss Thing. You'll be okay. She's like, I'm not getting my way, and I'm going to throw a major fit. They need to show all that in court when it comes up. They're still not showing us anything. Waiting for court TV. Um, okay, let me see. Let me find. Okay, let me pull this up. Yes, Carrie, Lori is still defending herself again. She just can't help herself, can she? Well, for some reason, Court TV made their feed private, guys, on the upcoming trial of Lori Vallow. So let me see what's going on here. I know East Idaho News had it up. Yeah, they're saying stand by for court, so I'll keep an eye on their feed. Yes, she is representing herself again. So 1 minute ago, Nate reports that the judge entered the courtroom. Here we Here we are again for the third time. Thank you for your patience. He explains the case and says jury selection process will continue. He will ask questions, then the prosecutor and the defense. The judge tells jurors not to withhold information in order to make it on the jury. Just be honest and candid with your answers. Do not be concerned with what you think lawyers or parties, or I will think of you. Um, Nate says Brandon is there with his wife, and Kay Woodcock is also here. That's awesome. So they're still going through the panel of discussions about the jury. So let me bring up this interview for you guys, and we'll take a look at that while we're waiting to see what happens. And at least we can get some a little bit more backstory. Now, Nate did a show the other day, and I've tried to find the document. I don't know where it's at. I'm not paying to access Lori's damn documents. So, but he was talking about, hang on, let me get to the right feed so I can keep an eye on the side. Sorry. Okay. So apparently, the morning of the shooting, when Brandon got back home, he went to the gym and he comes home. He notices this Jeep parked there, right? And it appeared to be running and it had tinted windows. And he saw the back window pop out, and he saw the barrel of a gun. Right before that happened, though, two neighbors were also out and about. One was leaving for work, and another one walked the dog. Both of those neighbors saw that Jeep parked right there by Brandon's yard. They noticed the color, they noticed the tinted windows. One noticed that the driver's seat appeared to be pulled all the way up to the steering wheel. So that tells me there was no second driver. There wasn't a driver and then Alex doing his thing. He was the driver. And if he had to lay down in the back of that Jeep to get position, maybe he had to slide that seat all the way forward to accommodate because he was taller. So those two people will probably be testifying that they saw that Jeep, right? Um, yeah, we don't know if they're going to do opening. It depends on if they get this jury seated in time, if they'll even get to opening statements today. We knew that much on Monday when she was sick, and that was the judge's goal, was to get them all back in there and get it finished and get opening statements underway today. But we don't know how far they'll get. If Lori has her way, they're not going to get very far, right? They're just not going to be able to get that far. Hang on, I got to get something saved here before I can move forward. It was going to mess me up. Hopefully she won't give them too hard of a time as far as this part of the jury selection goes, because it's just really, normal procedures and normal questions they're about to move through. It's nothing special. I know folks want to make it a huge deal, but it's standard jury questions, right? Okay, let me get this over here where I need it. Okay. There we go. It looks like they are in court. Let me make sure this is the right feed. Let me refresh.
Appearances, please.
Trina Kay on behalf of the state and for the record, the victim is present in the courtroom.
Bell for the defense.
All right, I'm going to need you to scoot up to that microphone. We also have present in the courtroom a representative from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Do you want to announce?
Yes, Your Honor. Joseph V. Hill on behalf of the Sheriff's Office and Correctional Health Services.
All right, after court on Monday, immediately after court, I ordered the Sheriff's Office to provide some sort of medical assessment of the defendant. I received a pleading late yesterday afternoon indicating that Correctional Health Services examined the defendant around 12:30 p.m. yesterday. The defendant was treated for one condition, and Correctional Health Services has indicated that from a medical standpoint, we do not find any clinical indications to miss court. Is that correct, Mr. Vigil?
Yes, Your Honor, and we have additional information if you need it, but it's not much. But
all right. All right, let me turn to the defendant.
This is probably going to be a HIPAA violation coming up.
Your Honor, first of all, can all of this be sealed? Anything that having to do with my medical? I don't think that's something that all of this needs to be sealed, including the minute entry and
Hold on.
the response from MCSO, all these things.
I can seal the response from MCSO, yeah, but to the extent, well, do you have any other information you want to provide me as to why you're not medically able to proceed? Right now, the only objective information I have is that you were assessed and CHS sees no clinical indications of why you need to miss court.
They told me
If it's
that
something you want to discuss on sidebar, we can do that.
that would be great.
All right, I'll ask.
Don't let Lori know about sidebars. Golly. She has to put her little headset on. Hey, Rach. Put her headset on because, we can't allow her near the judge. They should have them headsets for that train of attorneys that lead up to the judge's desk at Karen retrial for sidebars. Lori wants everything sealed so none of us can talk about her little cold. Lori, we don't want to talk about your cold. I want to talk about the evidence against you. I could care less about your illness or what caused it. Right? Do like we have to do, Rachel. Grab some damn Tylenol or something. More caffeine. I don't know what to tell her. Give the woman a bottle of juice and some Tylenol. Give her no Dayquil. She might get her a buzz. Yeah, denied. Yes, this is technically day one, G14. They had to finish doing her jury selection because she was sick. The judge ordered this morning to have her brought into court regardless, so here she is. And they are at a sidebar already. Because Lori wants everything sealed. The future of criminal trials. Seal everything, keep everybody out because no one knows how to act. What are Lori pointing to? They're probably having to explain to Lori the way procedures work. Your medical records are your medical records. I don't care if you're in jail or the hospital. There's rules and regulations. She doesn't want us to know all her secrets like we know about Stephon Stearns. Honey, you're not in Florida. You better be thankful you're not in Florida, Lori. We would know everything and then some about you. Every jailhouse call, message, text, FaceTime, email, well, you name it. What you bought on commissary, everything. We would know if you got hair dye on commissary or not. If anybody bothered to call you in the jail, we would hear that phone call as well. It would be so cool if you were in Florida, come to think of it. Treat you like we did Casey Anthony and Stephon Stearns. Tell the whole world all your little dirty secrets ahead of trial. Imagine that. Yeah, the thing about that with Florida, y'all got to remember, Casey Anthony walked. I know, right? Let that sink in. I watched the whole trial, so I know why she walked. So they can quit crying about all their pretrial publicity is going to hurt their cases, because it apparently didn't hurt Casey Anthony at all. And she didn't even get a change of venue. And the world saw all her family's dirty laundry. 2 years running. Uh-oh, Butterfly, you having chat issues? Okay, Forrest, you guys go right ahead. I'm thinking they're taking longer sidebars than they do over in Canton. They would probably get a little further in their sidebar if Lori knew what she was talking about. Yeah, most of the time Florida gets it right, Carrie. If you really watch the Casey Anthony trial, it wasn't a matter that she didn't do it. It was a lack of evidence, right? People really don't want to hear the truth about that case, and I don't mind talking about it. People get mad at me and assume that I feel like Casey Anthony was innocent, but far from it. But from a legal standpoint, halfway through the trial, it was so obvious. The state really messed up. We can only blame
Intends
the
on
state.
proceeding with jury selection today.
Oh, good Lord.
Depending on how things go, I don't know that I would make the parties do their opening statements or not, but that remains to be seen today. The court finds that the court has not been provided any objective medical
Look at her.
information of why the defendant can't proceed today. Although the defendant expressed that she has a headache and is not able to proceed, she was able to fully advocate on her own behalf and articulate to me the reasons why she doesn't think she can proceed, and seems to be of sound mind and ability to proceed. So we're going to bring the jury in. How many jurors do we have? We're still missing 6. Mr. Vigil, you can be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll give those jurors a few more minutes. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that, but that's up to you how you present. All right, we'll be at recess.
They're going to be at recess. He's getting aggravated. She's not wanting to cooperate. She's laying her head down on the desk like she's got to go to the clinic. Carrie, the 80s. What, Casey Anthony? No, that wasn't the 80s. The prosecution didn't have enough evidence to back up what they were saying. That was their big problem in the Casey Anthony trial. And no DNA to tie her to the actual scene. It was sad. Sad but true. Full-blown tantrum. This lady, I'm going to pull it up on the side, guys, so I can keep an eye on things while they're at recess. They'll probably just get moved through. My guess is they would get moved through the rest of the jury and maybe do opening statements tomorrow, depending on how long each side. Well, if Lori can't stand up there and talk, she can't give an opening statement, can she? She's going to get up there and whine through it. Oh, my goodness. The judge is like, do I want to torture myself and all the people with that? Or just let her go back to the cell and rest up and come back in the morning? which is probably what they'll have to do if she's going to act like that. Honestly, that's insane. Where did my... Okay, hang on. I'm having to fix something, guys. Okay, there. All right, now. Oh, that guy you were looking. Yeah. Oh, that guy. That case that you've. I still don't know the name of that person, so I keep forgetting that's the case you're talking about. Yeah, she'll learn. Well, it's too late for her to learn her lesson, Butterfly, isn't it? She's already repping herself. That's what she gets. Now she's going to milk her little cold. Okay. Let me get to this piece I had saved for us to watch. Right, G14, she can stay seated and give her opening. I'm sorry, I have no patience or empathy for her. No, exactly. Let her stay seated if it makes her more comfortable. If she's too weak to stand, you know, then yeah, accommodate her. Let her have at that. Okay, so this was the private investigator hired by Brandon when they were trying to locate Melanie.
And just bizarre stuff. And I was having a hard time actually keeping up with what he was trying to tell me. He was clearly anxious and fearful. He had just been shot at, and he was convinced that somebody might try again, and he was in danger. His kids were in danger, and he didn't know what was going on and where it was going to come from. So he was looking for help.
So this was just a matter of days after that attempted shooting on his life.
Yeah, I think it's like maybe a week or so later. He didn't feel like the Gilbert police were doing enough and quickly enough. And so he was out.
At the time, did he know that JJ and Tylee were missing?
No. We knew that, I mean, my focus at that point was finding Brandon's wife, Melanie, finding Alex Cox, and finding the Jeep, because those were everything involved in the shooting against Brandon.
And they have records showing, like I mentioned the other day, that a couple of days before the shooting of Brandon, or the attempted shooting of Brandon, Alex took that Jeep and had the windows tinted just a couple of days before that. Lori rented the storage unit in Rexburg, and that's where she took the back seat and the spare tire off the back of the Jeep too. We've seen the video footage, surveillance footage from that location. In fact, Nate reports that the owner of that location called him and said, "Hey, I have video surveillance footage of Lori Daybell and Chad Daybell." And Nate's like, "What?" So that's how he got a hold of the footage. And we've seen the footage. It's been played on my channel and Joe's. So we see them taking the seat in and the tire in and then back out again later. So we have that circumstantial stuff as well. And as well as the, sorry, my kid was messaging me and it's showing up on my PC. It was distracting. Goodness. Okay, so yeah, that's so now he's going to talk about looking for Melanie and what all he was finding out.
So I found Alex and Melanie together, loading up furniture at a house that Melanie had been renting, and they loaded it up in this U-Haul. I never saw the Jeep because, as it turns out, it was already in Rexburg. And so, you know, I knew about the kids in those first conversations, and I knew about Kay Woodcock. And I knew that she had not had contact with the kids, and it was just sort of added to the story. At that point, Charles Vallow had been dead for a couple of months, and he was convinced that that was a murder, even though the local police were viewing it more as a self-defense. So he wasn't getting any satisfaction. He really didn't know what was going on.
Now, as a private investigator, at that point, what do you do? Because it seems like it's a complicated story. Your client almost lost his life. At that point, no one knows if the kids are dead or alive or whatever, and you're focused on Brandon's case. How did you begin that initial investigation?
Well, the first thought was just to try to find Melanie, and I knew that she had this rental house, so I went to that neighborhood and just started talking to neighbors and leaving my car. And I checked out the house. It looked like somebody had just left. There was still towels hanging on the fence out by the swimming pool. There was some kids' bikes there, and it looked like somebody had just gone grocery shopping. There was no car in the garage. The garage door had windows, and I could see in there. There was no car. And the neighbors were telling me that they hadn't seen her in a couple of weeks. And so I just left my car, said, if you see anything, let me know. Then I I made contact with Melanie Gibb because I was aware from what Brandon said that Melanie Gibb was part of that small group of people with Lori and Melanie Boudreaux. And so I went and knocked on Melanie Gibb's door, tracked her down, and told her I was looking for Melanie Boudreaux. And she said she didn't know anything about it, told me to leave, basically. Wouldn't talk to me anymore. I slipped my card under the security door, and I left. I assumed, just based on her reaction, that she was on the phone with Melanie before I ever even hit the end of the sidewalk. It was just that kind of reaction. So I figured at that point the word was out that I was looking for people. And then I found, I was out on Halloween trick-or-treating with my grandkids, and I started getting phone calls from the neighbors saying there's a U-Haul backed up to Melanie's house. So that's when I headed down there, and that's when I saw Alex and Melanie together loading furniture. And that lasted into the next day. They came back and loaded more. They left a bunch of stuff out on the curb, a bunch of kids' toys and clothes with a little cardboard sign on it that said free. And that was kind of creepy. I followed them to a restaurant and watched them, kind of sat at a table next to them and watched them interacting. They seemed pretty stressed. I followed them to Zulima's house. That's where they were staying. They parked the U-Haul outside of her house. They stayed there overnight. And they took a weird kind of trip up east of Phoenix the next day, came back and stashed the U-Haul in a parking lot outside of a sporting goods store for a day. And I was actually sitting in the parking lot watching that U-Haul when they showed up. Alex and her showed up in her car, and they got out. Alex got into the U-Haul carrying a duffel bag, military-style duffel bag, and she got back in her car, and they drove off and headed straight to Rexburg.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
Isn't that weird? Like, why would you park it there? I mean, that's so weird. Well, because you were being a little suspicious acting. That's why.
is that kind of the first sign or signal you had that they're moving to Idaho?
Yeah, we knew that that Lori had already moved up there, and presumably with the kids, and that's what Kay was saying. And of course, the trick there is the reason I knew that they were headed to Rexburg was while they were loading the furniture into that U-Haul, I slipped a GPS unit onto that U-Haul. And so
I don't know why it blinked out, but did you guys hear what he said he did? While he was surveilling the U-Haul they parked in a random parking lot, he was able to slip a GPS unit onto that damn thing. Go, Mr. PI.
was watching everywhere they went. And But the scary part was that Brandon had left Arizona with the kids and gone to his parents' house outside of Salt Lake City. So we knew that Alex and Melanie were running around knocking on doors all over the Phoenix area at former friend's house looking for the kids. She even posted on social media offering a reward for information about where the presence of her kids.
Damn.
But Brandon was hiding them. Now they're in a U-Haul headed straight in that direction. Watched them head out of Arizona, straight north to Flagstaff, across the border. We had no idea if they'd gotten information and maybe headed toward Brandon and the kids. So it was like air traffic control from here. I was on the phone with the American Fork Police. We had vehicle identification. I had pictures of everybody. I knew what the license plate was. I knew about Alex's criminal history. I provided all this information to the American Fork Police, and they were ready. They were positioned all over the place. And then we, on GPS, watched them drive right straight past. They were within a few miles of the house where Brandon and those kids were. And they kept
going.
They never stopped. They stopped once at a yogurt shop south of Salt Lake, but otherwise kept right on moving. And right through Salt Lake, I had an investigator physically following them through Salt Lake City.
Wow.
All the way to the Idaho border.
Wow.
And then they just kept going. Now, once they got to Rexburg, they went right straight to the apartment or that townhouse complex where we knew that at that point we knew that Lori was there. So it was clear they were all getting together there. That's when Kay asked about the kids. At that point, up to now, I'd been looking for adults, but Brandon had talked to Kay about what we were doing, and so then we turned our attention to trying to find the kids. And I had contacted a retired FBI agent I knew up in Pocatello who started poking around up there and scoping things out and trying to find the kids. He went to JJ's school, talked to his school principal, I believe, and we found out that the kids had just not been seen.
Yeah.
And so it was just after a discussion, they decided to contact Rexburg Police and ask for that welfare check. And that's when everything changed.
Right. Yeah, JJ had gone for a few days, I believe, and then Lori pulled him out saying she was going to homeschool him. Did you and did Brandon believe from the beginning that it was Alex who tried to shoot him out of that Jeep?
Yes, Brandon believed it was Alex.
And did you believe, or did you know how intricately involved Lori was in all of it?
No, I mean, it frankly, the person in any of these kinds of cases, you always ask who benefits. And in this case, it was clearly his wife, Melanie. She wanted the kids, and he had $1 million life insurance policy. And he knew that Charles Vallow had $1 million life insurance policy and that Alex Cox had just killed him. During all this, also, shots were fired at Tammy Daybell.
Right.
And then she died in her sleep while all this is going on. So now we got, people just dropping dead and the kids are missing and there's insurance stuff going all around. But really our focus was on Melanie at that point, thinking that she would be the one that would benefit. She was under the influence of Lori. There was no doubt about that. And you knew that they were all together up there, so it just sort of looked like one large conspiracy. And as to why, Alex didn't have any beef with Brandon directly, but he was the guy who pulled the trigger on Charles. He recognized the Jeep because he knew that was Charles' Jeep that Charles had given to Tylee, and had Texas plates on it still. That Jeep showed up on some license plate reader cameras around town prior to that shooting. And then it was just kind of this circumstantial situation that really kind of pointed to it being Alex driving that Jeep.
Do you remember at what point when you realized, wow, Lori is involved in all of this, or at least, leading it or whatever her involvement is? Or is that kind of a gradual thing as you're learning step by step?
Well, I mean, we knew that she was involved in Charles' death. That was pretty clear. And it was a heck of a coincidence that Tammy Daybell died at that time. And so it just looked like this group, that they had plans. These dark spirits were being eliminated, and so that's who was doing what, who was pulling the strings. That was not clear. Was it really Chad? Was he the cult leader, if you will, or was it Lori? Was it them together? How many people were involved in this thing? We really didn't know. There was a lot more questions than there were answers in those early days of it. But Charles had left a lot of information before he died. He was so worried, so convinced that he was going to be killed that he changed the life insurance policy so that Lori couldn't get it, and then he gave all of his account information and passwords and everything to Kay Woodcock. Well, she shared those with me, and I started monitoring the Amazon account, and that's when we saw him buy these wedding rings, the infamous green jade,
The malachite.
the malachite, before Tammy Daybell was dead. They were buying these rings, and in fact, they bought a man's ring and a woman's ring, and she returned the man's ring because it was the wrong size, and had to get another one. But she was using Charles Vallow's Amazon account to buy all this stuff, and she was listing the address in Hawaii for the stuff to be sent to. So we were sort of from a distance. I mean, we were monitoring all of this movement, and of course, passing information on to law enforcement as it developed. And then, of course, the Jeep, Rexburg police found this Jeep at that complex and took it into custody. It was being sought by Gilbert police, so there was a law enforcement cooperation there. And we found it very interesting that none of that group reported that Jeep being stolen. It was in custody of Rexburg police, but they didn't call anybody to say, hey, our Jeep's missing out of the garage up here.
That's a good point. Yeah. You'd think you'd call the police if you woke up one morning and your car is not in your driveway.
Right. Exactly. And it wasn't. So that was kind of an interesting, we were kind of laughing about that a little bit, but.
So when all this is happening and no one's quite sure of who's where, or no one's been arrested and people are worried for their safety, what do you tell Brandon? I mean, what do you advise your client to do? Because he's got to live day to day.
Yeah, well, he was definitely in hiding. Basically, it was lay low. Our best bet was to keep an eye on where everybody was. And of course, we knew that Lori and Chad had taken off to Hawaii. We knew about the wedding in Vegas, where everybody got married all at once, and so we were just kind of keeping an eye on them. But she did find out. She showed up at that house where Brandon and the kids were staying. This was at Brandon's parents' house. She showed up there, almost got herself killed. She was in the garage.
Careful,
and
Melanie.
Brandon's dad walked out in the garage to find this person standing there. You heard noises.
You're talking about Melanie.
I'm sorry, Melanie. Did I say Lori?
Yeah.
No, Melanie was in the garage. So she found out. And Alex was parked just down the street. Melanie got charged with trespassing on that incident.
She came to get her kids.
Yeah, she came to get the kids. She'd been after the kids the whole time. And then, of course, all of this stuff gets laid out in the divorce proceedings that Brandon filed. And that became a big deal because he was laying out this potential conspiracy that Melanie, that he believed still at that point that Melanie was a co-conspirator at the very group was he was in danger and his kids were in danger. And that was the argument he was making in his divorce action in court here in Phoenix to get sole custody of the kids. All of this religion stuff became a part of that case. And it was touted, it became a very aggressive case. Melanie had attorneys that held a press conference and blasted Brandon really and got themselves in trouble with the state bar over how they handled that case. And so it did play out a bit, even, everybody's focused on these trials, these criminal trials against Lori, but a lot of this played out in those divorce pleadings.
Why do you think Melanie hasn't been charged?
Well, clearly there isn't evidence. The whole case is a conspiracy case, and it's circumstantial. So, Brandon believes that was the Jeep, and Brandon believes that Alex was in it. But they're really, unlike the shooting of Charles Vallow, where there's no question about who was firing the gun, there really is, from a legal perspective, there is a question here. So it's just, how sure is his testimony? How certain is he of that? So the circumstantial case to prove the conspiracy has got to be in some kind of communications that were going on between all these actors. It had to be, if Alex was in that Jeep, there had to be, that doesn't mean, Lori. I mean, they could use location data from cell phone towers, for instance, but that wouldn't put Lori there. That would potentially put Alex there, but not Lori. And yet, so there had to be some kind of text messaging or something going on there. And I'm not privy to what the disclosures have been, even in this case, but there had to be some kind of communications between them that are specific enough that could be a reasonable inference could be drawn about what they were planning to do or had done. But obviously Melanie is not a part of that. Whatever there must not have been sufficient evidence to suggest that she and Alex and Lori all conspired together. Now,
with Chad, you could say probably that Chad, that's why they're not charging him.
And we saw that in the Charles Vallow murder case, that there was text messaging that went on that linked all of these together. And I suspect more of that is going to come out in this particular trial, but it probably will not include Melanie. If she wasn't representing herself, if she had a defense team, this would be an easier case to defend than any of the others, because it is a kind of a circumstantial and conspiracy case. Her defense team could be pointing at Melanie and could be pointing at Alex. And, unless there's something really tangible, some communication with Lori and Alex that put her in the driver's seat of getting rid of Brandon for whatever reason, who knows? I mean, pure speculation on my part, but she was unable to collect the life insurance policy on Charles. But they knew that Brandon had a similar amount of money. I think that if they needed the money, and they were already saying that Brandon was a dark spirit, that does sort of give Lori a financial motive to go after Brandon, to help the cause, to finance the cause, if you will.
Well, in all of these trials, you'd think they really could have gone after Alex a lot more. He's not here to defend himself. He really did do the dirty, quote unquote.
Yeah, and
Sorry, hey guys, Melissa, this was done, I think, like a day or two ago. Nate Eaton had it up on his channel, on the East Idaho News channel, and that's where I saw it. So this was Brandon's PI during the investigation.
And if anybody was, he should have been the boogeyman in this case.
Yeah,
he was the easy guy to blame. But the problem with Alex is he didn't have a motive directly. But the biggest problem is Lori herself lying to the police about where the kids were while they were missing. She wasn't out looking for them, and she deliberately giving, diversionary information to law enforcement at the time that they're missing. That puts her smack in the middle of the conspiracy.
Rich, did you think the children were alive? Whoa.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the longer that they were missing, the less likely it was. And given what was going on up there, you get a little cynical after doing this for a long time, and all indications were that it was pointing that direction. And but you're always holding out hope. I think law enforcement knew fairly early on where the kids likely were. They were saying things like they had to wait till the snow melted.
Right.
So, I think there was some understanding or some belief that that's where they were going to find them.
Were you surprised just how horrific the murders were, the conditions of the children's bodies?
Oh yeah, what happened to those kids was horrifying. It was horrifying that they were murdered, but then to the brutality of the post-mortem kind of brutality was just horrifying. It's hard to fathom how anybody could do that to another person, let alone children they're related to. It is mind-boggling to. I don't know how you'd ever reconcile that stuff. It's even killing of Tammy Daybell was certainly bad. It was a suffocation, strangulation, whatever there, and then the shooting of Charles. Those are all pretty quick and rapid, but then this, you're dismembering and you're burning and wrapping them in plastic and burying them. It's just, oh man.
Yeah.
That's the part that is, I'm sure that Brandon and Kay and others wake up in the middle of the night with these images. It's just too horrifying and too painful to think about.
Yeah, when you've seen them, you don't forget them. Brandon really is lucky to be alive.
He's the only survivor in this thing.
Right.
If you think about it, he came very close. I mean, that bullet struck the window just above his head, and
I mean, had his window been down,
right?
Anything? I mean, had he been an inch? I mean, you always go through these what if scenarios.
What ifs? Yeah, but I mean, he was in the same situation as Tammy. She escaped death apparently
right
a few weeks before, but it came back after her
right.
in a different way. So could that have, I think that's one of the things that was really in Brandon's mind too, that this wasn't necessarily a one-off.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a scary time. And then to see them traveling toward where he was that day, when following that U-Haul all the way up, watching him going right toward that house where he was staying with the kids. There was some pucker time there. I was sitting in Phoenix watching the movements and coordinating with police and everything else, and we were holding our breath as to whether there was a confrontation coming.
Is it hard to believe that it's been almost 6 years since you started this?
That is the crazy part. Yeah, it is hard to believe. And once law enforcement was involved, I kind of, I stepped away from doing some active investigation on it because I didn't want to stomp all over, law enforcement investigation. There was no purpose of that. You had multiple agencies involved at that point. But we cooperated with them, and to the extent our information was helpful, I mean, it great. But then watching the whole criminal process was kind of interesting just to watch because normally I do criminal defense work mostly. So I'm usually sitting at the defense table with people like Lori and Chad. And I kept watching all of this thinking, how would I defend this case? What would I be doing on their defense teams? And I was not impressed. I was just not impressed with what happened in Idaho, or certainly down here with her representing herself. But even in the Idaho cases, it seemed like there was a lot more they could have and should have done. But in challenging the forensics, they did very little of that. But it was the right result. I mean, based on all the evidence, it's regardless of whether she had a better defense team and whether she had a good defense team down here instead of herself. I think she was going to get convicted regardless.
Yeah, do you think that we'll actually have a trial that begins this week?
I don't know how sick she is. At a certain point, because of the problem with the jury pool, they've already sort of pared down the jury pool based on this group's availability to sit through certain dates. If this thing pushes into that July 4th time frame, then you're going to lose a whole bunch of prospective jurors. So there's a good chance that if she's sick more than a week or so, they may have to push this off into the fall.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
That's the thought.
This stuff happens. Yeah.
It does happen, and the jurors could come again on Wednesday, but like the judge said today, how much longer can you ask them to keep coming back? And then you've got to schedule courtrooms. There's a whole lot more than just,
and there's other scheduling conflicts. I mean, the judge himself is scheduling his other trials around this one. The prosecutor's got other cases. I mean, there's so many moving parts to trials, and picking out trial dates that once you have a slot that you can drop one in, you do everything you can to preserve that slot, because it's going to screw up all kinds of things if you don't.
Well, as you said earlier, if it's going to happen where someone gets sick, I guess now is the ideal time rather than once it's started.
Yeah, because once you've started.
Okay, so they're just going to go through the procedure there as to, what happens if she continues to be sick. So that was a good, I had not seen this investigator talk before. So he may have spoke somewhere over the years, but I've not known about it. So I think probably because Brandon's trial is getting ready to go forward is probably why he's talking now. So we'll go look at Nate's Twitter, and I'll give you guys an update. And then I want to show you some of that body cam footage from when Brandon called the police after he was shot at, in case you have not seen that yet. I feel like they have a jury. Let's see. Still don't know if they're going to start proceedings today or not. Okay. So it starts out like an hour ago when they were waiting outside the courtroom. We read through that earlier. So he starts like this. Actually, it shows more than that. Okay. Brandon is there. This is what they were referring to in chat earlier. So Brandon is there with his wife. Kay is also there. Joseph Hill from Maricopa County Sheriff's Office was there. Boreski says he ordered the Sheriff's Office to perform a health eval on Lori. She was treated for one condition. We read through that earlier. Nothing to keep her about her condition will keep her from missing court. Now let me get down to where he talks about what just started going on. A medical professional at the Sheriff's Office evaluated Lori either yesterday or Monday and determined she was well enough to appear in court. The judge, Lori, and Trina, the court reporter, and Lori's advisories were, okay, we saw that when they did the sidebar. I gotta keep scrolling down because I wanted to get to make sure we didn't miss the stuff. Okay, so the judge entered, and then we read about that where they came in. This is the third time they're going to try. All right, so the judge then told the jurors not to withhold information in order to make it onto the jury. Just be honest and candid with your answers, he advised them. And then the judge tells jurors to use yes or no. Do not nod or say all that. Okay, tells them to speak up and lets them know a microphone will be passed around. And then the judge introduced himself and his assistants. Trina introduced herself, Trina Kay, the prosecuting attorney, and Ryan Pillar, the case agent with the Gilbert Police Department, who was sitting next to her. They also have a paralegal with them. Judge asked potential jurors if they know any of these people, and none of them raised their hands. And then the judge tells that the jurors that the defendant is representing herself with advisory counsel. He says that is her right, and asks the jurors if the fact that she has chosen to represent herself will affect the jurors' ability to be fair. Nobody raised their hands, or their numbers rather. It's kind of standard stuff there. A lot of it is they were getting down to, I want to get down to the actual, okay. One juror, the sidebar was over. He says the potential schedule is today, tomorrow, Friday, and then all of next week. There's a chance trial could finish next week, but if not, Monday and Tuesday, June 23rd and 24th. He asked the jurors if any of them have conflicts with the schedule. One juror raised their number. She is leaving for a wedding in France on the 24th. Another lady is unemployed and is picking up jobs, but she would have to decline other jobs if she stayed. Another juror has a doctor appointment on Friday. Goodness, everybody's busy. One juror wants to go look at apartments this Friday. He has an appointment set up on Saturday because he will be moving, and the judge asks what time the appointment, Saturday at 12:30. Nate writes fast, doesn't he, guys? Or has he got a little keyboard to help him out? Judge asks if serving on the jury would create financial hardship. One juror raises their number. She is 1099 employee and likely won't have the proper paperwork to get reimbursed. She's a single mom and a nanny. She's paid cash and gets 1099 at the end of the year. Judge explains to defendant is not required to produce any evidence. He states that the state must prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge says the defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty. As of now, she is innocent. He asks if everyone understands and asks if anyone disagrees with this, and none of them raise their numbers. Well, they're not supposed to, right? Okay, so going back to, now this was 39 seconds ago. One juror says his father was a professional licensed gunsmith. I very much learned quite a lot about firearms, he says. Lori asked if he frequented the firing range. The man says yes. She asked if his knowledge of guns would be an asset to the jury or might distract him. What? Well, sir, will you be an asset or will you be a distraction? Trina objects to the question. The judge asks Lori to rephrase the question. Wow. It's really a surprise it didn't take longer to seat her jury first time around with crazy questions like this lady has. So Lori had asked if any of the jurors own a gun. There was more little questions like that. Hold on. As she proceeds to ask more questions, Lori is speaking louder and not as feeble. Oh, she's feeling better. One juror says she had to get wound up. One juror says he had a DUI and would try to be fair. Lori thanks him for his honesty. About a DUI? Another juror had a misdemeanor DUI over 10 years ago. He says it would not affect his decision in the case. Lori follows up and asks what that experience was like. He says standard process. He did what he was told and got through it. She's trying to find people who might sympathize with her incarcerated status. Good. These men are like, nah, bitch, we had to take that DUI and we had to just own it and go on with life. Wow. Okay, so this is one of the last things that was said. I know there was more in between these statements. There was more. But Trina tells the juror, she says the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Mormons, will be discussed. She asks if there is anyone who has an issue with the church and would have a problem with it during the trial, and none of them raised their numbers. Lori. Okay, so they're still moving through. Oh, good Lord, cough, Jay Cough. Okay, for shits and giggles, let's see what Jay Cough had to say. Oh, should we read it or not? If I see a bullet wound, I know it's a bullet wound. I don't need to see multiple bullet wounds in a row to recognize a bullet wound. Okay, Jacob. Dr. Russell said that she couldn't recognize any of the marks on John O'Keefe's arm individually as bite marks. Did you listen closely, Jay? She said the grouping of abrasions made her realize they were bite marks. And then she says, do you see the absurdity? I do. It's not in the doctor. Jesus Christ. Yeah, no comparison, Butterfly, but she's over there wanting to gain any kind of sympathy she can. Do you own a gun? Are you a gun enthusiast? Do you love your gun? Do you been in jail before? I don't think she's going to find sympathetic jurors, and that's what a lot of the times that's what a defense angle is. You want to gain. There's a whole procedure behind picking these juries. That's part of the reason why she should have had an attorney present. They're way better at that. Ann Taylor's thrown a big old fit over there in Idaho all about jury questionnaires. The whole 9 yards. She's made it a thing. Lori didn't have brains like that working for her. So she just knows to get up there and ask those standards questions. Look, she's got inmates helping her with her defense and some law library books. There's a guy on Twitter that goes around posting the dumbest, well, it's what he calls the dumbest pro-burger comments of the day off Twitter. And I've never seen him quote and retweet anything of Jacob yet, but I'm waiting on it. Like, that'll be so epic and funny. There's some accounts out there that really crack me up. Okay, comedy relief. Serious stuff. And the cop that did Brandon's, who got the call to come out to investigate Brandon's call, she sounded like, to a lot of us, the same cop that went out and met with Charles. But I'm not positive on that. But this is the body cam footage and for some reason they blurted out, it's not us on our end. We did nothing to manipulate the footage or anything like that. And the court feed is not up yet, guys. They're still finishing up their last minute stuff. But so I guess tomorrow, since we're off on the are we off Karen Reed tomorrow, right? We go back Friday? Isn't that what Tired Bev said? See, I forgot. Tell them I lost interest. Good Lord. So if that's the case, tomorrow we'll come on and do a full day of Lori. So in the meantime, we'll just get the backstory here. No common sense. Some of the stuff these accounts, I just don't know what makes them think some of them legit believe what they're doing. So I'm like, I had to go back to a Miranda Lambert song. It takes all kinds of kinds. And yes, ma'am, it obviously does. Jeez. Okay, so here's where Brandon called the cops after being shot at by someone in a Jeep that morning.
I noticed a green Jeep Wrangler.
Okay.
It's like a pukey green.
Okay.
Color.
A pukey green Jeep Wrangler. And everybody now knows that was Tylee's Jeep, and it was owned by Charles Vallow. And he had purchased it, and Tylee had been driving it. And from what Kresha, the family, says, Tylee was making payments on that Jeep. She was doing her part, had her job, and was helping to pay for the Jeep. So then by this time, Tylee's gone, and so is Charles. And Lori has control of the damn Jeep and gives it to her brother to go try to commit this murder. And they think they covered their tracks.
Had a Texas plate.
Mm-hmm.
I just moved in like a week ago, so I
Okay.
thought maybe it was just my neighbor.
Okay.
So as I was kind of pulling in,
And at this point, another little backstory part, Brandon was pretty much in hiding. No one knew where he lived. He had the kids. Melanie, his wife, Lori's niece, was not there. They were already separated. I believe they were going through their divorce at this point. I'm not positive on that process at that point of the process yet. I think they were, but needless to say, she wasn't there. She was literally probably the only one, Brandon says, that knew where he lived. So therefore, she would have had to have been the one to tell Lori and or Alex. But I don't guess they have that in any kind of text communication. That's my only thought on that, is they must not have it on a text. Hey, here's Brandon's address. And if it, from Melanie's phone texted to Alex, here's the address, that right there's your connection. I don't guess they have that. Tells me those took place verbally, which is what y'all should all be doing. Writing stuff down. Remember that. I'm not trying to tell you how to commit crimes and get away with it. I'm just saying people like receipts. Okay, I don't know why it's going all swamp signally on us, but it is.
They lifted their back window.
Okay.
They saw a muzzle. They shot.
Are we talking a real gun, a BB gun?
It's got to be like a BB gun or an airsoft.
Okay, so they shot. Then what happened?
It hit my window, and instead of turning in, it scared me really bad.
Okay.
I thought, I'm getting shot at, so I drove straight. So
Okay.
I drove straight really fast.
Okay.
Pulled around the corner, got my phone out, called 911, sat there, drove a little further up. I watched them come around the corner.
What do you mean coming around the corner? Coming around the corner where?
So I drove up there. I drove
Okay.
to this street.
Gotcha.
made a right, went a little further.
Okay.
Parked by, there's a park right there.
So he went northbound on that street.
Turned right, and I watched him turn right down here, and I knew there was only one way out of this neighborhood.
Okay.
It was on Pecos and Wrecker, so I told that to the dispatcher.
Okay, so he was on Wrecker. He went, but you don't know if he went onto Pecos. You just know Wrecker Road.
Well, he didn't get on Wrecker. He stayed on this, and he came out on. He had to have gone out on Pecos because that's the only way.
Oh, he stayed in the neighborhood. He did not go out to Wrecker. I got you covered. Okay.
And I was nervous, so I was kind of waiting because I didn't want him to follow me.
So we don't know where, if he went on Pecos, left, right.
I don't. I didn't follow him anymore. I was a little uncomfortable.
Okay. 11 Paul 22, just for information on units, left the neighborhood south toward Pecos and unknown from that location. Okay.
So it was really loud, so that's why I didn't think BB gun, but it could have been maybe.
Well, let's look. So you were just pulling into the driveway. They were sitting here.
Yeah. So I was.
So were they facing then west? Because if they opened the back.
Yeah, he opened the back, and there had been two people, I think.
Okay.
They were parked right here.
Right, facing that way.
See, Brandon just said he thinks it had to be two people. But the only thing that threw me off was the neighbors thinking that he saw the seat slid all the way to the driver's seat. That's pretty darn close. And if there had been somebody sitting there, then he would have saw a person sitting there. So I just, I don't know what to make of that. Maybe he just assumed there was.
Gotcha.
And so my window was perfectly aligned because I was kind of starting to pull in.
Okay, so you didn't totally pull in yet. Okay. Okay.
You can see my window. It shattered, but it didn't go through, which means it couldn't have been a real bullet. I didn't think about that.
Oh. Whoa. Hello. Is that
Sorry, my
who's?
fault, I'm not good.
Okay, I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, oh wow, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Is this going to shut on me if I get close?
No, because I'll
Okay.
put the key inside.
Yes.
Well, I don't think that's a.
You see right there's a bullet hole in the door. And Lori was throwing a fit in court saying that, I don't know the reasoning behind not having the door anymore. I do have defense attorney point of view. Yeah, that's a little bit of an issue, but not much. No big deal. But the bullet hit the window and one hit right there where she's got the light pointing. But Lori wanted the window. The window shattered and fell to the ground, right? But for some reason, they didn't keep the door either. And she tried to make that a huge deal evidentiary wise, and the judge didn't buy into it. He's like, well, we have the actual car and the bullet hole. But so, yeah. And she also wanted information about Tylee's Jeep kept out as well. It's like of course, all defense attorneys want the most damaging evidence kept out, right? That's how that goes. And 9 times out of 10, they're denied. So I guess we can say she gave it her best shot, but she failed. Yeah. Crazy lady. Yeah, and thank you for joining. Okay, every time I hit stop and go to replay, we have a swamp signal issue.
BB gun.
One train calling is engine on 459. It's been holding for over 2 hours.
Alright.
District 6.
Alright, so it looks like they shot up anything if he's there. Alright, so you just moved in.
Yeah.
Okay, you just moved. Okay, so was this a vacant home at the time?
Previously, yeah. It's
Okay.
a rental.
Alright. So you're the owner though right now? Or you still
the lease.
you're okay, so you're just renting it. Did the
One second,
owners
Holly.
of the house, can I open?
Yeah.
Is this, how do you open this door? Go ahead.
Right.
Ah, look at you.
Sorry.
That's pretty sweet.
One train 12, Officer Taylor.
Anyway, did the owners of the house say anything to you who was renting the house before you or anything?
No.
Alright. Do you have any enemies? Anybody that you...
Just went through a divorce. There was some crazy stuff that happened with her aunt, killed her husband, but I would hope that has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Did y'all hear what he just said? He said her aunt was just involved with killing her husband, and I hope it has nothing to do with this. So this was after Charles had already been murdered, and he knew everything Charles was afraid of with Lori. And he's well aware of what his own wife was pulling, right? He absolutely knows that was them now coming after him. Holy shit, right?
Did you live here in the valley before?
I've
Where'd
lived
you
here
move
for
from?
10 years.
I'm sorry?
I've lived here for 10 years.
Okay, so you moved, where'd you move from? Here in Gilbert,
I just
or?
sold a house over on Quinn, just right by the
Okay. And no issues at work, no issues, enemies or anything? Okay.
Other than the only people that I could even think of would be that group. But,
The family,
yeah.
your ex-wife's?
Yeah.
All right. It's kind of weird. All right, let me grab my camera and get some pictures. All right, so you were coming here. Did it look like a long rifle? Did it look like a rifle type?
Yeah, it looked like a rifle or something. Like there was a muzzle. There was like some kind of a muzzle thing on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they just lifted up the back gate and shot.
Okay. So they were shooting this way.
You think this thing he was describing was a silencer? Alex already shot Charles, and he's got, went to the range a lot. He had a lot of gun experience.
But okay. All right.
Guys, well, because we're looking at Brandon's car, which happens to be a Tesla, I was checking Nate's Twitter, and 29 minutes ago it says, Trina says she brings up this next point because it's become political. She says Brandon was driving a Tesla at the time of the crime. She asked if anyone has a problem with a Tesla or would associate it negatively in the trial. None of them raised their hands. What the? I guess you need to ask that, but would I have even thought about that? I don't know that I would have thought about that, Trina. I guess the only thing interesting about jury selection is some of the crazy questions they get asked. But here we go.
Hello, 13.25. Go ahead and 1022. 11.23. You're much closer. Go ahead and have your turn.
Hey, head over this way to the house. I want to show you something.
Yeah, I'm not there. I was just going through the whole park.
Yeah, I think it might be adults. But yeah, I think this might be a real gun too. Not sure. I just want to show you real quick. Right here, right in the street here on Phelps. He was heading westbound, just about to drive into his driveway. And the green Jeep was parked right here on the side, right next to his house, just west of the house, facing west. And whoever was in the back opened up the back of the Jeep Wrangler, the little door in the back, whatever you want to call it, the flip thing, and shot one. So the guy didn't make it into his driveway. It shot and it actually hit the driver's window, blew out the window. And so the guy got scared and kept driving westbound. And then as he's round the corner, that's when the Jeep Wrangler took off, kind of circled in the neighborhood, and then headed toward Pecos, don't know where. So, I'm going to take some pictures. Okay, bye. Where was the window? Where did that land? Because I'm assuming you picked that up.
It actually stayed on my door.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, when I drove around.
So when you got out of your car right now is where it lays?
Because you saw it just opens automatically. As soon as
Yeah.
it opened, the window fell off, and so
That's just weird how that opens. That would freak me out. Alrighty.
So majority of the glass fell back down into the door itself.
All right, so whereabouts, what were you say? Were you about right here?
right here.
Okay.
I saw the tailgate lift up.
Yeah.
Pointed the gun at me. Shot.
Okay, so it would have went.
I heard a loud boom.
Yeah.
My window shattered, and then I just.
Right. I'm trying to figure out trajectory. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, there's nothing.
It's stuck in there.
You think so?
Absolutely.
That's what I was wondering, but I don't see. It's got to be back in here. I'm not touching. Anyway.
Who's pissed off at you? How long is that? Really? Who just killed her husband?
They claim self-defense. He died at their house. It was in Chandler. They think I'm involved in it.
Contact at 103 Charles Lobby.
He just explained to that male cop what happened with Charles. And this cop is not, he's not wanting to believe it right away, in my opinion.
Alright, so he's right about here. Okay, you guys want to go just right over here for just a sec. Let me get some pictures real quick.
Where were you when the car? No, like what's the street?
You all be playing 3 in it. I'll be back at work.
Alright. Now, the green you're talking about, are we talking that type of green?
Like a hunter green? Like a pukey green.
Okay, that's kind of more of a pukey green. Are we talking a chartreuse? I know it sounds like got a gazillion colors, green.
Let me just try and find it on my nest. Look at your nest. He's got a nest.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have your, is that your car registered to you? The driver, or your registration? Okay, I'll just get all your information off of that real fast.
Brandon and Charles, the same thing happened. Right, Rachel?
There you go. Camel green.
Oh, camel green. Okay.
You're good, dude.
Are
they sending a detective up? This definitely.
I don't know.
The detective should
Is
come
I'm
out.
assuming.
We're still
Well,
recording.
oh, I am too. Scott's coming out.
Walk up. Is he?
I don't know.
You need to call him.
Well, I
Did you
thought he
call
was
him?
coming. Well, you just said about Scott coming out.
No, I said I would call him.
Oh,
You
well,
want
of
me to call
course.
him?
I thought he was coming out. Let's just get him on the radio and say, "Come on out." There goes a gray. Now, is it a two? I gotta find out 2-door, 4-door. But anyway, get him out here. I thought he was already on the way.
I'm gonna walk up and down these streets.
Yeah, see if we have any more
I'm gonna see
cameras.
I'm gonna walk up this one and then back down.
Cool, thanks. Are you Brandon? All right, cool. So what would you say, how many minutes before you called us did this happen?
I just called right as soon as it happened.
Okay, fantastic. Now, were you able to, because you're coming in, they're facing that way, so you're not going to be able to see. When they passed you, when you were parked, were you able to see any description of these people? Was it a guy, a girl, anything? Okay.
I was trying to make sure I had enough distance in case they shot at me.
Okay. And you said you saw, when you saw, you could see the barrel. You think it was a long rifle, not a handgun?
Yeah, and it had like some kind of like a silencer or something on it.
Okay.
That's why it's like maybe it wasn't a gun but it was so loud.
Okay.
Can I sit down?
Sure, sure. Do you have
Now remember, Tammy Daybell, before she passed, had filed a police report because somebody shot at her in her own driveway, and she saw the gun. She described very similar to what Brandon describes, but yet Tammy chalked it up to being a paintball gun. I think the first thing that hit Brandon's mind is that can't be real. People aren't expecting for someone to show up in their yard with a gun pointing at them, right? It's totally unexpected. Are you going to what are you going to think? Who knows? That's scary. The place you're supposed to be safe, right? Your home, your sanctuary, your safety, all that. So don't ever think it's not a real gun, guys. Always think it could be.
I was going to say, do you have a chair or something that we can get you?
I have some chairs. I just want to sit down.
Okay, sure, no problem at all.
It's kind of hit me, you know.
Is there anybody else here? Are you the only person that lives here? Is there anybody here that...
My kids live here with me.
Okay, no other adults? Okay, is there somebody we can call to come here to be with you?
Yeah, in a minute.
Okay, you go ahead and you take your time, whatever you need, okay? Can I get you a bottle of water?
I got one over there. I'm fine. I just want to sit down.
Sure, no problem at all.
Here with you, buddy?
No.
Nobody else is here at the house? What do you do for a living?
I own a couple businesses.
Okay.
I know I have a lot of questions. I apologize. Is it a 2-door or a 4-door Jeep Wrangler?
Looks like a 2-door.
Think of all the things he was already going through by the time this happened. You know, mourning the loss of Charles, his closest friend, one of his very closest friends, right? Trying to keep your own kids safe because Melanie's gone off the deep end. And will your kids be labeled dark next, right? What were their plans for the kids? Was it to get the kids to go and do to them what was done to Lori's kids because they're in the way? You know, there's so many things. And for that to sink in, right? That bullet barely missed his head. Knowing that Charles is already gone and Charles could totally defend himself, but he's no longer there because of those two. And now here's another man trying to bring attention to what they're capable of doing. It's a good thing it finally stopped with Brandon, because we don't know how many more people would have been in their wake. Once they think they've gotten away with it so many times, you know, would they have, the two of them continued that? If anybody and everybody in the way is fair game until they're all out of here. 13 minutes ago, guys, Nate Eaton was reporting that the judge paused for a 5-minute break. One of the jurors had to use the restroom. They left the room because of that bathroom break needed. He texted the court. Another juror did not show up today. He had texted the court saying he needed to get back to work. With all the uncertainty, he felt he needed to get back to work. The judge is now reviewing jurors to dismiss. A little while ago, Lori asked if anyone in the room has ever wanted to be on a jury, like a bucket list thing, she asked. Is it your bucket list, guys, to get on a jury? None of them raised their arms. And then she asked, the law says I am innocent until proven guilty. Is there anyone who disagrees or doesn't understand that concept? None of them raised their hands or their arms. Lori asked if any of the jurors can easily have their minds changed. Judge follows up and asks the pool if there are any of them who easily give up on their convictions. None of them raised their numbers. This is like a battle of the judge and the defense attorney. So a little update on that, guys.
Sure.
10-4, make 10-4.
Can I get that third one too? I want to do a camera.
10-4. Break 11. For correction, make 4.
Do a line search down the street.
Okay.
11, 41.
Okay.
Okay, guys, another update. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt it again, but 10 minutes ago, Nate reported that the judge asked Lori if she has anything else. He says that they can't hear anything she is saying. And then the judge says court will resume at 1:30. Now, that should be, what, 3:30 my time? I don't know. Lori stood up and walked out. No wheelchair today. So I guess she got a little bit of her strength back, right? And I'll check for updates while this is playing out.
When you went, huh? Yeah, you're gonna do a canvas, yeah, and do a line search. As you went down and you got out, you turned
Disregard, just
north
17.
on that street. Okay, how far did you go down before you parked and just?
You know where there's a pool over here?
There. Okay, I'm not real far. It's been a while.
I owned a house on the other side of the street. So I
Okay.
so I just pulled on the other side of the pool.
pull the other side of the pool. Okay.
It's right there.
All right. And then they
I saw-
passed you
yeah,
by.
as soon as I saw
They
them drive by, I thought, well, I'm going to go down this way, make sure they don't come back out and go out this way.
Right.
Since I had 911 and I told them. And
Okay.
as I saw them go down that way, that's when I pulled
Okay.
back in. And,
Okay.
and then it kind of hit me what happened. Yeah, not until you showed me that I realized someone
Okay.
was shooting.
All right. I'm going to get some maps and stuff like that. I'm going to be making some notes, so just hang tight, okay?
Guys, Joe Schmo reported something spicy. Okay, so the judge apparently is really done with this woman. 2 minutes ago, Joe was reporting the same thing that Nate was reporting. Lori's voice returns to barely audible at one point. The judge pauses and says something like, I'd like to note that the defendant is able to speak and act normally in front of the jury, but now apparently can't speak. The judge put that on record. In front of the jury, she's fine. Jury's dismissed, and she can barely talk. Oh, Lori, the dramatics. It's a little too late to start your acting career, baby girl. A little late.
The GMC? Okay, got it.
Yeah, 101 to Warner, starting off.
Was that Lindsay and Warner?
They go fast. Joshua.
11 Joshua.
11 to all 41.
10-4. 11 4
Yes, she is, Rachel. She's going off the rails on a crazy train. All aboard.
I'm going to shut off for now.
I want to move on and talk about what happened with Brandon.
Okay. Rachel said, here we go again. Lori going off the rails. Yeah, she's a little mad, isn't she? Too bad. I think everybody's done with her. The judge is done with her. Blah, blah, blah. Lori. My goodness. This piece is interesting here with Nate, guys. Don't know what time they're going to go live with her proceedings again. If they're going to go actually at 1:30, which would be a minute still my time. I'm still trying to find out for sure. But this, I'm going to skip through a little bit of this. He's going to talk about some backstory that we know. But he's reading from a document that was the one that describes what the neighbors saw that morning at Brandon's house. And he gives also a little more in depth about the storage unit and the tinting of the windows. All of that's incriminating evidence, right? But how does it tie Lori to a conspiracy? Removing the seats and the tire would lead us to believe she knew what was going to happen with the Jeep, but the data, we don't know what they have as far as that goes. We do know that Lori did keep, I don't know how they know, but they do know that Lori kept Alex's phone in her possession while he was on his way to Arizona and while he attempted the murder and on his way back. And at some point, she dials her own phone from Alex's phone. Now, I don't know if she drove away from her residence and did that right there in town to make him ping a certain location, because they're getting a little smarter at this point, right? But she calls herself from his phone to make it appear he was still in Rexburg when the whole time he was in Arizona. he's just showing stuff about the car. So let me get it to when he starts to read from this. We'll play a little bit of it. I won't play. Joe's on a live break. I was just on Joe's stuff. Was he not? Where's he at live? It didn't show him on Twitter or YouTube live. We've told him to go live from his phone. There he goes. Okay. Hang on. He's finally getting it. We took a look at, well, I was looking at his Twitter a few minutes ago. He's, his updates, and then we'll go from the beginning of it. Okay. We pull up Joe.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in.
He's saying hey to
giving everybody a lunchtime update from Lori's jury selection. So yeah, there was a little bit of confusion, and I probably added a little bit by not specifying that the orders I posted were for Monday and not today. So we get in the courtroom at 7:30. Hey, Salty.
Cool.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome, buddy. Don't be mad.
So we got here really, really early. We got here at 5, and the line was already stacked by 6 for the number of public seats. But it's not going to be that bad going forward because we're already eliminating jurors from the big pool that takes up most of the courthouse. So future days we won't have to get here that early because there will be more seats available. There'll be 45 public seats available and 15 for the media. Anyway, so talking about what went on this morning, so we got upstairs and then heard from the man that is the source for that information, Justin Lum. Justin said, no, we don't have an order to transport today yet. And then, oh, Lainey, thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate that. Lainey with the lunch fund, I love it. I appreciate that very much. But then about a half an hour later, Justin tweeted out, we do have a transport order for today. That was probably like 8:20. That may even been closer to 9 o'clock before we found that out. So found out she's coming to court. We figured it because we saw Trina K come in, we saw Brandon Boudreaux come in, and then eventually we saw the defense team come in, the 2 advisory councils. Hey, V-Series, what's up? Hi and bye. Hi, Lolly. So we knew she was coming in. They let the media and the public in about 10 after 10, and she was already seated by the time we get in there. So people are like straining over, the desk that's behind her to see if she's in a wheelchair or not. She was not in a wheelchair. She was in street clothes. Her standard trial fare, the black pantsuit and the lavender blouse, was what she was wearing today. And so we get started like right away with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to report on what they found. And he said she was treated about 12:30 yesterday, so that's almost exactly within the 24-hour range that the judge gave them to do that assessment. He said we found one condition that we treated her for, or one issue, he said, not condition, one issue we treated her for, but we did not find anything that would clinically prevent her from attending court. And Lori's slumped over her desk and her voice is barely audible. She said, no, I just can't, or something like that. We couldn't hear what she said, but she was objecting to the MCSO's assessment of her. And the judge said, well, from what they're telling me, we don't have a reason not to proceed. And she said something, and he goes, well, do we need to have a sidebar? So probably so she could talk about a personal medical issue, and didn't want the whole world to hear it, which is fine. And that lasted a good 5 minutes. And the judge came back out of that, and he said, well, the court is ready to proceed with jury selection. And I find that there is no clinical valid clinical reason. A headache is not a valid clinical reason, basically, for us not to proceed and for you not to be able to proceed. And in fact, you were able just now to advocate for yourself to not proceed. So if you can advocate for yourself not to proceed, then you can advocate for yourself in front of the jury. So it's so like a dad talking to his teenage daughter, his petulant teenage daughter. Like that's a dad or son, dad to daughter or son. Said that to my son a few times, something similar. Not in a court situation, of course. But anyway, so he recesses so they can bring in the jury. And when he does that, there's a little off-the-record exchange between him and her two advisory councils. Well, Abernathy was sitting right next to her. I think Michael Abernathy. I always forget his name and get it mixed up. I think he's Michael Abernathy, but I know Pam Hicks. Pam Hicks was sitting behind her, like she usually does in the desk behind her, and she got up and stood next to her, and she had this really sympathetic look on her face. And they said, I heard the word ibuprofen, so I think they were talking about maybe getting her some ibuprofen for her headache.
That's what we all recommend.
But then and Nate Eaton, who was sitting right next to me, we both thought we heard her sobbing at one point after the judge left. I don't know if they got her any ibuprofen or not, but thought we heard her sobbing. So then we bring the jury in and we start the group voir dire. First, the judge goes through all those legal things that they tell to the jury. And then he gets to group voir dire and he asks them some questions, and for each of those questions, like, do you have any members of your family or friends that are law enforcement? Do you have a problem with different things impacting you that might not make you fair and impartial? And there's a whole laundry list. I didn't bring my notes out. I left all my stuff upstairs so I could come down and get some fresh air and spend a couple minutes with you guys. I'll go over the notes in more detail tonight. So group voir dire, they write a few numbers down. There aren't a whole lot of positive responses during judge's questions. So he goes through like several questions in a row where none of the jurors raise their cards with their juror number on it. So then Trina Kay starts her voir dire, and she said a couple of interesting things there. So she asked some standard questions like, since the defendant is representing herself, are you going to hold that against the state, or hold the state to a higher standard, or her to a lower standard because she's not an attorney? Nobody raised their cards for that. And then she said, so there are going to be parts of this trial that are about the LDS Church, and does that impact you at all, from a religious standpoint? Nobody raised their cards. And then she said, so the victim in this drove a Tesla, and some people might formulate a political opinion or have a political opinion related to Teslas. And does anybody on this jury have a problem with that, or would you be, impacted from that? Oh, Forrest, awesome. Thanks, bud. Forrest with the 5 gifted memberships.
Forrest coming through.
You rock. Forrest, you rock.
Yes, he does.
And welcome into the new members.
We're a little partial, but...
So she asked the question about LDS and Teslas, and I think off the top of my head, those were the most interesting questions for her. There was another one I had written on my notes that I think was kind of curious. I'll get to that tonight in detail. Then it's Lori's time, and I'm genuinely worried that her voice is going to be so low that she can't communicate with the jury. Guess what? Her voice completely changed. Her voice was loud and it was clear. I wouldn't say loud. Her voice was normal and it was clear, and she enunciated clearly. She sat up, as far as I could tell, sat up a lot straighter than she was before that. And she asked some, her usual questions. If I don't testify, I don't remember her asking if I don't testify on my behalf, will you hold that against me? I honestly remember if she asked that, because that was about the only question she asked last time. She asked some other wacky questions, but the whole time her voice was clear, enunciated clearly, no whiny little girl voice. Butterfly, hey there, Butterfly, welcome in.
They're all double supporting. That's so cool.
Gosh, I wish I could remember some of the questions that she asked that were. Oh, so she asked a lot of
Uh-oh. Joe, is that you or me, buddy? Joe,
questions about guns. So first she asked who all owns guns. And it was probably 40%, maybe 30, 35, 40% of the jurors own guns. And then she asked how many of those of you that raised your cards, how many of you would that impact, your ability to be a juror on in this trial? And I don't think any went up. And then she asked if anybody in the jury pool had ever been to a shooting range. And almost, keep in mind we're in Arizona, almost every single one of the cards went up. It was 95% of the jurors. Like it may have been 99%. Because the judge read them all aloud one by one. And it took him a while to do that. And I'm thinking it would have been a better question to ask how many of you haven't been to a gun range. And actually it would have provided a little levity in the courtroom. She was, a couple of times she was like, a couple of times her interactions with the jury were like, I'm not going to say flirtatious, but they were like there was one guy. So she asked another question and she said, who of you have a lot of experience with firearms? And the first juror was a male, the other two were females that served in the Army. His dad was a gunsmith. So he grew up with guns. And she goes, he was a what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. He said he was a gunsmith. She goes, oh, a gunsmith. I have a hard time imitating her like that. And then a couple of the times she got positive responses on, would it bother you if, or did you have experiences in court besides being on a jury? So she asked how many were on a jury, and then she asked how many of you have had a court experience that wasn't being on a jury. And there was one of them that had a problem with it, and that he admitted that he might have a bias. And she goes, oh, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it very much. I mean, just not professional, and we know she can't be, because she's either flopped down on her desk in front of the judge when the jury's not there, or she's, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that very much. I can't imitate her. It was noteworthy though.
Trying to imitate Lord. So
then we get to the end of her questions. It's about 11:45, 11:48, somewhere in there. Says, all right, we're going to dismiss. One of the jurors said they need to go to the bathroom, so we're just going to let you all go out for a 5-minute break while we talk about, letting some of you potential jurors go based on your responses. They go out, and then he starts going through them one by one. There were 8 of them, and head flop back down on the desk. So the way that it goes is he says what his opinion is. I think we should let this juror go based on, what they said in their response. And then he says, state what's your opinion. Trina usually say, yes, I agree based on cause, or just to be safe, we should let that juror go. And he says, defense, what do you have to say about it? And we hear nothing. He goes, defense, do you have a response to this? She goes, I agree. And after like the second or third time of doing that, the judge pauses
right now.
And he goes, I just need to note that the defendant is perfectly capable of talking and acting normally in front of the jury, but apparently now she can't talk. So yeah, he noted that too, and he was getting frustrated with her too, but he noted it for the record. So they get through all those 8, and the judge just goes, it's late enough now that why don't we just go ahead and break for lunch, and when we come back, we'll work on impaneling a jury. He goes, I don't think we should start opening arguments and closing arguments today. So Dizzy, if you could let Trial TV Live know, we're not going to have opening arguments today.
Well, there you go. I agree, Rachel.
He said we'll start those tomorrow with witnesses. So that's the update here from court. Yeah, I think I'm going to go get some lunch. I'm getting a little hungry, a little thirsty, and I didn't bring snacks this time.
Well, what were you thinking?
All right, thanks, Dizzy.
Butterfly, he didn't take his snacks. What have we been telling this guy for how long? Goodness. Yeah, it would make sense, Rachel, that he would go ahead and say to do them in the morning versus this afternoon because, Miss got her head down on the desk and can barely speak. Like, what is going on there with that lady? There's no way. But she perks up when the jury's present and doesn't seem to, but you know how it is when you don't feel good. By the end of the day, you're winding down. So she would probably be really hard to deal with at the end of the day today. I wonder if that gives the judge time to get the jury sworn in this afternoon, right? When they go back from their break. To get that part finalized and done so they can just move forward with the case. Let me check something really quick. Guys, go over there and sub up to Joe. Give that video or give that live a like. He will be live again tonight to recap today's events. Yeah, Rachel, we gave him a list a long time ago in Delphi. That's how long that Butterfly and I have been trying to make sure this man takes snacks. At some point, he was on his own. I'm teasing. We had to remind him. I forgot what I was looking for. Hold on. I got sidetracked. Oh. It just came back to me. Okay, so I think they start Lori's trial starts a lot later in the morning, I should say, than like Karen Reed's does. Like for me, it's 8 a.m. Central Time when Karen's trial kicks off, and it was always around 11 a.m. or so for me when they did it in the Brandon's case. I'm sorry, Charles Vallow's case. They started later in the morning because they are 2 hours behind me. So I think they're going to go at 10 a.m. was the time they went last time, but I think the judge had mentioned going an hour early when they talked about this on Monday about Lori being sick, possibly going into today, about starting an hour early to make up for some lost time, which would have put them beginning at 9 a.m. their time versus 10, which none of us really understood why they start so late in the morning anyway. But if we're having the day off for tomorrow on Karen Reed, then I'm going to go ahead and carry Lori's trial in the morning, and we can at least get the opening statements in. And then at night, because we do have the Karen Reed trial going, and I am committed to that because went this far with it, I can't bail out now. So I'm not going to be able to stream them both at the same time. I don't even want to attempt that stuff. So at night, I'll just go get recaps, probably over there on Joe's channel every evening. I may come back on in the evenings to discuss the happenings of the day. And then if I don't expect her trial to go on more than a week, I really, really don't. So unlike the last trial of Lori's, we covered the whole entire thing. I just won't be able to do both at the same time. But I do want to get those opening statements in. Yeah, maybe I'll have to go hang out with Joe in the evenings, and he'll be over there at the trial TV. Is that who he goes and does the updates with over there at night? I think after his day in court or whatever. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, you guys are good. Thank you for posting the links. But so back to the Brandon stuff. Did you guys want to look at that piece with Nate and listen to what he was reading off? It's I still got a little bit of time before I have to sign off for the day. because it had some good information on what to expect at trial. Like I was saying, this evidentiary wise, I love taking a look at that stuff because hell, that's what matters in the end. What evidence do you have? And it was okay. Let me get the right one. Okay. Yeah, Joe has a live scheduled for tonight. To recap today because earlier they had expected opening arguments, but it just dwindled down to just finishing up the jury. But he still plans to go live, I believe, and recap the day's events. So go check that out later if you want to get the complete update there. And more about jury selection. Lori did have some crazy questions for the jury. Her reaction to their responses, I guess, is worth taking a look at. That's comical. Thank you, Forrest. There's Trial TV link right there. Okay, so Nate's going to be reading from this document, and it's going to talk about evidence in the case against Lori Vallow and her conspiracy to commit the murder of Brandon. So we'll take a look at that. Thank you guys for coming in.
On October 2nd, 2019, Brandon Boudreaux was residing on Phelps Street in Gilbert, Arizona. That morning, he left his residence at approximately 7:25 a.m., took his children to school, dropped off his youngest with his soon-to-be ex-wife, and went to the gym. Around 8:40 a.m., a neighbor was backing out of his driveway and observed a Jeep parked next to Boudreaux's driveway. The Jeep was parked so the front of the Jeep was facing the front of a white SUV. The neighbor noted that the Jeep was running, had tinted windows, and a Texas license plate. The neighbor had never seen this Jeep before. At approximately 8:48 a.m., another neighbor was walking his dogs when he saw a Jeep parked with the front of the Jeep facing the front of a white van in front of Boudreaux's residence. I'll pause right there. Makes me wonder if these neighbors are going to be called to testify. I wouldn't doubt it. The neighbor noticed the Jeep was running, that the driver's seat was pushed all the way forward to the steering wheel, and he could not see in the back of the Jeep due to tinted windows. Another pause. Imagine you are going on a walk in your neighborhood and you see a Jeep that's running, parked in front of a house of your neighbor, and the driver's seat is all the way forward to the steering wheel, and you can't see the back because the windows are tinted. You can't see inside the Jeep. It obviously caught these neighbors enough off guard that they took note of it. Boudreaux returned home approximately 9:13 a.m. I want to pause here again. Brandon has said publicly in testimony that nobody knew where he lived. Very few people knew where he lived, I should say. He was in the process of getting a divorce from Melanie. Melanie Boudreaux is Lori's niece. And remember, Melanie was close with Lori, so much so that she moved to Idaho to be by her, and was going through this divorce with Brandon. Brandon was listed on the dark scale by Chad and Lori, and Brandon had moved out into this home, and hardly anybody knew that this is where he was living. But Alex knew, and apparently Lori and Chad knew, Melanie knew, and this is at 9:13 a.m. He returns home from the gym in this car. As he approached his driveway, he slowed as his Tesla began opening the garage door. As Boudreaux slowed, he noticed a Jeep parked next to his driveway. Boudreaux watched as the rear window of the Jeep lifted up and a rifle barrel pointed out the rear window. Boudreaux heard a loud bang and his driver's side window shattered. Boudreaux hit the gas and drove away from his house. Boudreaux called 911 and returned to his house. We have the 911 call on our YouTube channel at East Idaho News. I won't play it for you now. It's on there. When Boudreaux put his Tesla in park, the driver's door automatically opened and the driver's side glass window fell out of the frame onto the driveway. This is, I don't know if you can tell on the screen, but this picture, that's empty. You can see kind of the frame of the window there, and there's no glass in it. It fell down. It's amazing he was not hit by that bullet. When police arrived, they noticed the hole in the driver's door frame and the driver's side glass laying on the driveway. Police recognized the hole as being made by a bullet. Gilbert police detectives went to the scene, took photographs of the street where the shooting occurred, the glass in the street, the white van, an area around the white van that was mentioned by neighbors, the Tesla in the driveway, the gunshot hole in the doorframe of the Tesla, and the driver's side window that was laying in the driveway. The police also took photos of the Tesla with a trajectory rod in the bullet hole and the bullet fragments that they collected from the doorframe. The Gilbert police report and impound sheets showing that the Tesla and driver's side window were not impounded, showing that they had not been impounded, were disclosed to the defendant back in 2023. On October 2nd, 2019, Lori Vallow and her co-conspirator Alex Cox were living in Rexburg. In the days leading up to October 2nd, Lori Vallow provided her deceased husband's 2018 Jeep Wrangler to her co-conspirator Alex Cox to drive to Arizona to shoot Brandon Boudreaux. This is what the prosecution is saying. Before Alex drove to Gilbert, he took the 2018 Jeep Wrangler to a tint shop in Rexburg to tint the windows so no one would see him in the rear of the Jeep as he lay in wait for Boudreaux to return home. On October 1st, Lori Vallow rented a storage unit in Rexburg. While Alex Cox was driving the Jeep to Arizona to shoot Boudreaux, Lori Vallow stored the Jeep's spare tire and rear bench seat in her storage unit. While Alex Cox was committing the shooting in Gilbert, Lori was in the possession of her co-conspirator's cell phone in Rexburg, so she kept Alex's phone as he was in Arizona. On October 2nd, at 8:02 a.m., the defendant used her co-conspirator's cell phone to call her cell phone to make it appear that her co-conspirator was in Rexburg, Idaho at the time of the shooting. All right, you got all that? So, Alex missed Brandon and then drove home to Idaho. And the timing of him, he would have had to drive, based on some video I'm going to show you here in just a minute, he would have had to drive pretty much straight. I've done that drive. It's about 13 hours from Idaho Falls. From Rexburg, it'd be about 14. And he would have had to pretty much drive straight there and straight back. He was on his mission, according to all the court documents in the story, to kill Brandon and then turn around and leave. And he happened to do it from the Jeep that belonged to Charles Vallow that Tylee Ryan eventually took possession of. But of course, in beginning of October of 2019, Tylee was no longer alive. I want to show you the police body camera footage that happened, that was taken the morning that Brandon was shot.
Okay, so we reviewed that already. But I thought that was a great read to give you guys a little backstory more on the case that maybe we didn't know. Yes, ma'am, sir. What can't tell, but you know what? I love that. Humor is allowed. I love to laugh. Yeah. So yes, ma'am. Yes. Let me know what you are, man, woman. I don't want to offend. Whatever the right thing is to call you, we'll call you. But yes, man, some of these cases get so crazy, you have to learn to laugh at them, right? Even if you don't want to. Some are so, they are what they are. It's true crime. But and laughing is something we enjoy doing over here, because sometimes watching this stuff makes us mad. We've been watching the Karen Read trial, so we are like in, go mode. Humor is how we live through some of this crazy stuff. Yes, definitely, Forrest. So good to have Forrest back. Oh, thank you. A name here is a woman. All right, now I know how to respond. I've had to ask a few people that, and like people don't hear my voice. For a long time, people assumed I was a guy because of my avatar and my name. Like, okay, let's let y'all do it, but that's cool. So so you're just joining. We have been covering the Karen Read trial, and that's my second trial ever covering. I've been covering true crime, but that's the second trial. First trial we did was Lori Vallow, the Arizona versus Lori Vallow for Charles's case, Charles Vallow's case. Anyway, so we did that, and it ended like what, guys? 2 days later, we were on to Karen Reed. So here we are again. So we will be keeping an eye on Lori's case because tomorrow we are off in Karen Reed. That gives us the chance to watch the opening statements here for Lori's case. We have a channel that we work with closely here, Joe Schmo. His link is in the chat. He's actually boots on the ground in Arizona covering the case and the trial. We just watched a live update from him a few minutes ago. He's going to be live tonight with a recap on proceedings, and he'll be doing recaps every night. And so I'll be going over there and getting updates in the evening since I don't think I'll be able to swing airing Brandon's trial. Karen's just takes up so much time and it's long. The trial court is too corrupted, the judge and prosecutors. I can only watch it in clips. Okay, you go watch it here. Well, thank you. Well, I get snarky. Sometimes I like it's a little. Am I a little much? I try not to be, but sometimes it is what it is. It's like if you could see my face, you would see my face as a dead giveaway. I can't control what I say sometimes, nor how I look when I'm responding to something. I'm like, oh, my face just told the truth. All right, guys. So, let me check one thing real quick about. There's no new documents coming down in Idaho worth taking a look at. Just some requests to seal discovery and request or orders sealing the request. Yes, it's all done. They seal it up. And nothing new in Stern's case either. We're still waiting on the judge to rule on 3 motions to suppress evidence in that case, and those have not come down yet either. So I'm keeping an eye on those dockets. We all got some shits to say occasionally, don't we, Butterfly? We can't help it. So it's all welcomed. Everybody stays in their lane. We don't have an issue with like crazy trolls and all of that. And if we do, we just laugh and deal with it. All the things. But guys, I'm going to let you go for the day. I have been here since 7:45 a.m. Central Time. Whatever time it is in your world is on you. But I'm teasing. Y'all know I don't look at the clocks that often. But anyway, I'll be back in the morning. So yeah, let me check out what time they're going to be live in the morning with Lori's court. I think it's going to be at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. their time, and I'll adjust to my time, and then I'll set up the live so we can at least watch the opening statements together. And if we get a chance in the evenings throughout, well, if I get a chance, and if you guys have the chance to come in and join me, so I guess if we get the chance, we can hook up at night and go over some of the things that's been going on in the trial with Lori, because I do want to see her final trial through, right? Those of you who have followed her cases since the beginning, when the kids went missing, when Nate chased her down to Hawaii, all the things, and watching it all play out over the years and get this far, I want to see her get that final guilty verdict, right? So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We'll handle it one way or the other. Okay, yeah, Rachel says she'll see everybody over there in Joe's live tonight. You guys have a good evening. We'll see you there tonight. If you guys want to come strolling in and say hi and give Joe some love, we'd appreciate that. And I'll be back in the morning and we'll cover opening statements in the Lori Vallow trial. We'll see if she can muster up the energy to speak. See what she's made of, right? All right, guys. Thank you to all the new members of the day as well. Forrest gifted some memberships this morning. Appreciate that. Thank you to a new name. Is that what it, wait, did I say that right? A new name, a name here. Sorry about that, for finding us today and subbing up. We appreciate that. We hope you stick around and give us a chance, and we are happy to have you. All right, everybody. I'll see you back sometime in the morning.
Thank you all for watching this here video.